When you're a child, a toy can be more than just an object, it can be a friend, a confidant, an adventure companion. It was like this for a little girl who, for one birthday, she received a beautiful porcelain doll. The doll's golden hair was fine and silky, her blue eyes looked almost real, and she wore a delicate white lace dress. The girl called her Maria. From the first moment, the little girl and Maria became inseparable. Every day, they created new stories and adventures together. Maria was present in all of the girl's happy moments. It was more than a toy, it was a piece of his own childhood. The days passed, full of laughter and games, until life brought an unexpected change. The girl's family needed to move to another city. During the preparations, the little girl had to make difficult choices about what to take with her and what to leave behind. In a moment of practical decision, she placed Maria in the bin, believing that, like many other toys, it was time to say goodbye. In the new home, the girl tried to adapt to the new things, but a feeling of emptiness accompanied her. The relationship between the little girl and Maria went beyond simple games. Maria was the girl's silent confidant. Whenever something upset her or when she had a secret to share, it was Maria she spoke to. In moments of sadness, the girl hugged the doll and found comfort in her unshakable presence. Every detail of Maria was special. The white lace dress, which the girl took care of with such care, washing and ironing with the help of her mother. The golden hair, which she brushed carefully, as if the doll could feel the affection in every movement. And the blue eyes, which seemed to understand all the girl's feelings, reflecting her joy and sadness. On sunny afternoons, Maria participated in adventures in the garden. She was the princess to be rescued, the friend to be protected, the companion of all the magical moments that the little girl's imagination could create. On stormy nights, when the thunder seemed so frightening, Maria was there, in the next bed, offering mute but powerful comfort. The doll was not just a toy, but a constant presence in the girl's life, a point of stability amidst the chaos of childhood. And, even when the girl grew up a little and started to be interested in other things, Maria still had a special place in her heart. So, when it came time to get rid of some things for the move, it was a painful decision to put Maria in the trash. But life in the new city didn't give much time to think about that. Adapting to the new school, new friends, and a new routine filled the girl's days. However, at night, when the house was silent, she missed the doll. The change of city arrived like a sudden storm in the little girl's life. Her parents announced that they were moving to a new city, a job opportunity they couldn't refuse. The house was filled with boxes and suitcases, and every corner seemed full of memories that would be left behind. The girl, despite her young age, understood the importance of change, but that didn't make the goodbye any less painful. Among the boxes and packages, she found herself faced with a difficult task, deciding what to take and what to leave. Her parents helped her sort out her toys, clothes, and other belongings. It was necessary to make practical choices, and not everything could be taken to the new home. When it came to deciding about Maria, the girl hesitated. The doll, although beloved, now seemed like an old, worn-out toy compared to the new interests and modern toys she had recently been given. Her parents, not realizing the emotional bond their daughter had with the doll, suggested it was time to get rid of it to make room for new things. With a heavy heart, the girl picked up Maria and walked to the trash can in the backyard. She looked at the doll one last time, remembering all the adventures and secrets shared. She placed Maria in the trash can, trying to convince herself that she was doing the right thing. The trash can lid closed with a thud, marking the end of an era. The journey to the new city was long and tiring. The girl tried to get excited about the idea of a new beginning, new adventures, and new friends. Deep down, however, she felt an emptiness, an absence that couldn't be filled so easily. Arriving at the new house, the family began to settle down. The boxes were unpacked, the furniture was arranged, and the new routine began to form. The girl explored the new environments, trying to familiarize herself with every corner of the house. However, the memory of Maria still lingered in his mind, especially at night, when the house was silent and the weight of change seemed stronger. The journey to the new city was long and tiring. The girl tried to get excited about the idea of a new beginning, new adventures, and new friends. Deep down, however, she felt an emptiness, an absence that couldn't be filled so easily. Arriving at the new house, the family began to settle down. The boxes were unpacked, the furniture was arranged, and the new routine began to form. The girl explored the new environments, trying to familiarize herself with every corner of the house. Little by little, she discovered spaces and created new games, but Maria's absence was a constant shadow. The nights were especially difficult. Used to having Maria by her side, the girl now felt the weight of loneliness in her new room. The doll's absence was a constant reminder of the changes taking place in her life. She tried to comfort herself with her other toys, but nothing seemed to fill the void left by Maria. The days passed, and the girl struggled to adapt. She made new friends at school and began exploring the neighborhood. Even so, Maria's memory remained vivid in her mind, a mix of nostalgia and regret for having left the doll behind. It was in this scenario of adaptation and longing that something unexpected began to happen, something that the girl could never have predicted. Adaptation to the new city was in full swing. The girl's routine was becoming normal, and she was beginning to feel more comfortable in her new school and new home. But one quiet night, when the family was gathered in the living room, the phone rang. The girl, curious and always eager to answer calls, ran to the phone. When she picked up the receiver, she expected to hear the voice of a new friend or perhaps a distant relative, but what she heard was something completely unexpected. A childish but strangely familiar voice said on the other end of the line, "Hi, remember me? I'm Maria. Now I'm in the trash." The girl froze. That was the name of her doll, thrown away weeks ago. Her heart began to beat faster, a mixture of fear and disbelief. Trying to convince herself it was a bad joke, she quickly hung up the phone. She tried to return to the normality of the night, but the call wouldn't leave her head. Who could have made that call? How would anyone know about Mary? And why would anyone make such a strange joke? But before she could ponder the matter further, the phone rang again. The girl, still stunned by the first call, answered the phone again. This time, her hand shook slightly as she held the phone. She expected to hear the voice of someone she knew, a logical explanation for what had happened. But the same childish voice spoke again. "Hi, remember me? I'm Maria. Now I'm in the trash." The feeling of déjà vu was terrifying. The girl felt a chill run down her spine. It was impossible for it to be true, but the voice was insistent, as if the doll was actually talking to her. She tried to respond, but the words stuck in her throat. All she could do was hang up the phone, faster this time, as if she wanted to shake that horrible feeling away. The fear was now very present. She looked around, as if she expected to see the doll in some corner of the room. But everything was normal, the house was peaceful as always. Her parents, busy with their own activities, did not notice their daughter's strange behavior. Trying to calm down, the girl took a deep breath and decided that she must be imagining things. After all, dolls don't make phone calls. Convinced that it was all just a silly joke, she tried to return to the normality of the night. But deep down, a part of her couldn't forget the voice she had heard. And that made her more restless than ever. The girl, still holding the phone tightly, tried to rationalize what she had just heard. With an effort, she tried to convince herself that it was all just a bad joke. Maybe someone at her new school had heard about the doll and was trying to scare her. After all, what else could it be? She shook her head, trying to shake off her growing fear. This is ridiculous, she thought. It's just someone trying to scare me. With that thought, the girl took a deep breath and firmly hung up the phone. She felt a momentary relief, as if by disconnecting, she could sever the connection with whatever this was. She tried to focus on other things, but the disturbing call remained in her mind. The words echoed in her thoughts, and the familiarity of her voice unsettled her. She headed to the room where her parents were, seeking comfort in their presence. She pretended that everything was normal, but inside, a storm of emotions consumed her. The minutes passed slowly, and the girl tried to distract herself with the television and her parents' conversation. But every time her eyes wandered to her phone, she felt a tightness in her chest. Rationality said it was just a joke, but instinct told him that something was very wrong. It was then that, in the middle of trying to ignore the situation, the phone rang again. The sound was almost deafening to the girl, and her heart sank. She looked at the device with a mixture of fear and determination. She knew she needed to answer, but she also knew she didn't want to hear the voice again. Summoning all the courage she had, she picked up the receiver and put it to her ear. The phone rang again, filling the silent room with its shrill sound. The girl held the phone with trembling hands, hesitating for a moment before answering. She knew she needed to face whatever was on the other end of the line, but anxiety overwhelmed her. She took a deep breath and, with a mix of fear and determination, put the phone to her ear. The familiar and disturbing voice spoke again, as if whispering directly into her ear, "Hi, I'm Maria. I'm right around the corner from her house." A wave of shivers ran down the girl's spine. How could it be possible? Maria was in the bin, she had thrown it away herself. But there was that voice, insisting on a reality that defied logic. Thoughts raced through her mind, trying to find a reasonable explanation for what was happening. She remembered the horror stories she'd heard at school, the urban legends about possessed objects or toys that came to life. But she had never imagined that something like this could happen to her. She hung up the phone abruptly, as if by doing so she could sever the link with that disturbing presence. She felt increasingly confused and scared. She looked out the window toward the corner, half hoping to see something outside, half fearing it would happen. The seconds dragged by as she fought to regain control over her racing thoughts. Maybe it was just her imagination, maybe it was a very elaborate prank. But something told him that wasn't it. With her heart pounding in her chest, the girl decided she needed to investigate. Courage rose within her as she approached the door, ready to face whatever was outside. The girl, with her heart racing, decided that she needed to face whatever was happening. She approached the living room window and looked out toward the corner of the house. The street was silent and deserted, lit only by the soft light of the streetlights. There was no sign of anyone outside, much less a porcelain doll. She tried to convince herself that it was all just a coincidence, or maybe someone was playing a cruel game with her. But the childish voice, so clear in his mind, continued to echo. "I'm Maria. Now I'm around the corner from her house." A shiver ran down the girl's spine. She turned away from the window, feeling exposed and vulnerable. What should she do now? Tell your parents? Would they believe her? Or should she just ignore everything and try to forget? As she struggled with her own doubts and fears, the phone in the room rang again, interrupting her thoughts. She jumped, her heart almost jumping out of her mouth. She didn't want to answer, but she felt like she needed to find out what was going on. With a trembling hand, she picked up the phone and put it to her ear, prepared to once again face that voice that haunted her. The girl, more scared than ever, held the phone with shaking hands. She took a deep breath before answering, preparing herself for what would come next. She knew she needed to face that voice that insisted on haunting her. As he put the phone to his ear, the childish voice began again, "Hi, I'm Maria. Now I'm in front of your house." The girl's eyes widened in terror. She felt a lump form in her throat as the reality of what was happening seemed more and more disturbing. How could it be possible? Maria was in the dumpster, it couldn't be in front of her house. Fear began to overwhelm her completely. Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to process what was happening. It was as if she was trapped in a nightmare that she couldn't wake up from. Unable to bear the situation any longer, the girl hung up the phone abruptly, as if by doing so she could remove Maria's disturbing presence. She dropped the phone on the table, shaking from head to toe. Now, more than ever, she felt alone and vulnerable in that strange house. The sounds around her seemed amplified, every little noise making her shudder. She looked around, half expecting to see the doll in some corner of the room, watching her with expressionless eyes. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she struggled to understand what was happening. She sat on the sofa, hugging her knees, trying to calm down. But the feeling that something was terribly wrong wouldn't leave her. She needed help. Taking a deep breath, the girl made a decision. She would run to her parents, tell them everything, and hope they could help her understand and resolve this terrifying situation unfolding before her. The phone rang for the third time, breaking the tense silence that had settled in the room. The girl curled up on the sofa, her heart beating wildly. She looked at the phone with trepidation, reluctant to answer it again but knowing she couldn't ignore it. With shaking hands, she picked up the phone and put it to her ear. This time, however, there was no voice on the other end of the line. Just a heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to fill the entire room. Time seemed to stand still as she waited, not knowing what to expect. Then, after a few seconds that seemed like an eternity, a strange sound began to echo through the phone. It was like a distant whisper, almost inaudible, but it seemed to be getting closer. A shiver ran down the girl's spine as she tried to discern what she was hearing. Suddenly, Maria's voice spoke again, but this time in a different way. It was as if her voice was distorted, almost unrecognizable. "Hi, I'm Maria. And now I'm after you." A scream of terror escaped the girl's lips. Instinctively, she threw the phone on the floor and stood up, looking around frantically. Her eyes widened as she saw a reflection in the window glass behind her, a shadow that moved quickly. She turned abruptly, her heart beating so hard it felt like it was about to come out of her mouth. There was no one there. Nothing but the emptiness of the room lit by the dim light of the lamp. Fear took over her completely. Trembling with terror, she ran towards the classroom door, shouting her parents' names. Tears obscured her vision as she tried to reach their safety, desperate for an explanation, for anything that could make her understand what was happening. As she ran, she could have sworn she heard a faint whisper behind her, something that seemed to whisper her name. But she didn't look back. She just wanted to get out of there, away from that phone, away from Maria's disturbing voice that pursued her relentlessly. The girl, still shaking and with tears in her eyes, heard the phone ring once again. The sound echoed through the room, filling it with palpable tension. She felt paralyzed for a moment, not knowing if she had the courage to answer again. But a part of her knew she needed to face whatever was on the other end of the line. With shaking hands, she picked up the phone and put it to her ear. The same childish and disturbing voice began to speak. "Hello, I'm Maria. Now I'm in front of your house." The girl swallowed hard, feeling a chill run down her spine. How could it be possible? She glanced quickly at the window, half expecting to see something outside, but all she saw was the darkness of the night and the stillness of the street. A mixture of fear and determination took over her. She knew she needed to do something, take some action. She couldn't just stand there and wait for the situation to resolve itself. Determined to face whatever this was, she hung up the phone with a quick, firm movement. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she began to formulate a plan. She quickly headed for the living room door, determined to find her parents. She needed to tell them what was happening, ask for help, find a solution to the terrifying situation she was experiencing. As she ran down the hallway, she could have sworn she heard a faint whisper behind her, as if something was following her footsteps. But she didn't look back. She just wanted to get to her parents, to their safety, and hope that together they could face whatever was haunting their home. The girl opened the door in a hurry, expecting to find her parents on the other side. But to his confusion and relief at the same time, there was no one outside. The street was quiet, shrouded in the gloom of the night, only the distant streetlights illuminated the empty path. She looked this way and that, looking for any sign of movement, but saw nothing but the silence of the night and the shadows of the trees on the sidewalk. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, she turned back into the house, closing the door carefully behind her. The feeling of relief was brief, however, as fear still pulsed in her chest like a fast-paced drum. She wondered if she should tell her parents about the strange calls and the feeling of being watched. Deciding that she needed to face the situation with courage, she turned and ran across the room towards the kitchen, where her parents were usually at that time of night. As she turned the corner, she saw the kitchen light shining in the distance. Her heart raced even more with the hope of finding her parents there, ready to help her understand what was happening. Upon entering the kitchen, she saw her parents talking animatedly, oblivious to what was happening in the room. She stopped abruptly, feeling a mixture of relief at seeing them well and uncertainty about how to tell them what was happening without sounding crazy. Her parents noticed her tense expression and asked if everything was okay. She took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to explain the situation. Before she could open her mouth, however, the telephone in the room rang again, cutting the air with its shrill sound. The girl's eyes widened with terror. She looked at her parents, fear reflected on her face. They exchanged worried looks, not understanding what was happening. With her heart in her throat, the girl knew she could no longer ignore what was happening. The girl felt a brief relief when she saw her parents there in the kitchen, even though she was still filled with fear of the disturbing calls. She approached them slowly, trying to calm herself before saying anything. Her parents immediately noticed the look of concern on her face and stopped talking, focusing their attention on her. "What happened, dear?" asked the mother, placing her hand on the girl's shoulder affectionately. The girl swallowed hard, feeling a lump form in her throat. I've been getting some strange calls," she began to explain, struggling to find the right words. "It's like someone is following me." The parents exchanged worried looks, not knowing what to say. "Strange connections," repeated the father, sounding incredulous. "What do you mean, daughter?" The girl took a deep breath, trying to gather the courage to explain better. Before she could respond, the phone in the room rang again, interrupting the conversation. The sound echoed through the house, filling the room with palpable tension. The three looked in the direction of the sound, the silence becoming heavier with each passing second. The girl felt a chill run down her spine, the feeling of fear returning with full force. She looked at her parents, eyes pleading for an answer or a plan of action. Her parents exchanged a serious look. "Let's check who's calling," said the father, getting up from the table with determination. He looked at his wife, conveying confidence in her looks. His mother nodded, following him towards the living room. The girl followed closely behind, her heart racing with anticipation of what they would find when she answered the phone once again. The phone rang for the last time, filling the room with its insistent melody. The girl followed her parents to the living room, where the device rested on the table. Her father picked up the phone with a determined expression, while her mother stood next to him, looking worried. He took a deep breath and answered, prepared to face whatever was on the other end of the line. The girl was holding her breath, her eyes fixed on her father's face for any sign of what was happening. Maria's voice began to speak again, but this time it sounded different. It was as if the tension slowly dissipated, replaced by an expectant silence. Her father listened intently, his face going through a series of emotions as the girl and her mother watched in silence. After a few moments, he finally spoke, his voice firm and determined. "Who's calling? What do you want?" he asked, his voice echoing through the room. There was a pause on the other end of the line before the voice responded. The father listened intently, frowning occasionally. Meanwhile, the girl held her mother's hand tightly, unable to contain the fear that consumed her. Finally, the father nodded, as if he had understood something important. He hung up the phone with a decisive movement and looked at his wife and daughter with a serious expression. "It won't happen again," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'll sort it out." The girl felt a mixture of relief and gratitude upon hearing her words. She hugged her mother, finally feeling safe next to her parents. Even though she didn't fully understand what was happening, she knew her father would do his best to protect them. They remained together in the room for a while, seeking comfort in each other's presence. The silence that followed was comforting, the serenity of the night beginning to infiltrate the house once again. But the girl knew that night would not be easily forgotten. The shadows of that experience still lingered over her, leaving an indelible mark on her mind. However, with her parents by her side, she felt like she could face whatever came next. And so, together, they waited for the dawn, ready for whatever the new day brought. Did you feel the shiver? Share in the comments what you thought of the chilling ending of this story. Don't forget to leave a like if you liked it and subscribe to the channel for more suspense and mystery stories. Activate the bell so you don't miss any new videos. Until the next adventure.